Thanks so much for coming, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm beyond grateful to be the head coach of West Virginia baseball. It's been an absolute honor, a dream come true. 9 years in the making to get this opportunity is really special in this industry. Having an opportunity to become a head coach of where you work for the last 9 years is very, very rare. So I just feel beyond blessed to be able to keep my family in Morgantown. We're integrated into the community, and so to be able to see those little people behind me continue to stay in Morgantown where they love to be, and my wife to stay here is, again, a dream come true. Coach Mazey took a risk on me 9 seasons ago. At that time, I was the youngest Power 5 assistant in the country, 27 years old, no recruiting experience, not from the region. There was a lot of reasons to not give me that opportunity, and so he entrusted me with a really big responsibility, and I came here and worked every day to try to prove him right. And this is the result of that, but couldn't be more thankful to Coach Mazey and his family for bringing me in and making me part of this. Charlie and Tucker, they're born at Ruby Memorial Hospital. Like I said, Morgantown is our home. It's our community. It's the longest place that I've ever lived somewhere and really been integrated into the community. I played at 4 different universities. I was at Oklahoma State coaching for about 4.5 or 5 years, and then coming to Morgantown is the first time that I've really got to have that sense of community where you know people, you know the banker, and you know the real estate agent, and you know the people of the grocery store, and you start to really know all the people that have passion around this university. And so that has been the funnest thing for me. I started as an assistant coach. I became the recruiting coordinator, eventually the associate head coach. And so I feel like I've been prepared for this position just kind of naturally throughout the years. Having the opportunity to grow into this has really been a luxury. The baseball staff is the core at why West Virginia baseball is special. Everybody from first-year student managers to the most loyal, hardworking assistants and their spouses, wives, fiancés that anybody could ever ask for. Our group of people that are inside these walls is exceptionally special. I don't take them for granted. We have over 30 student managers. We have unbelievable support staff. Everybody that touches this program is special, and that's why we've been able to get to where we've been able to. President Gee, Bryn Baker, Matt Wells, and the rest of the WVU leadership team, can't say enough how thankful I am for you entrusting me with this opportunity. I don't take it lightly. I am humbled by the fact that you believe that I can do a good job for this university and this program. Tabitha, the love of my life, my rock, she has sacrificed so much to allow me to chase my passion and to allow me to do what I love to do every day, and that's to be part of a team and help build a team. My family, Gary, Linda, and Jeff, mentors, former coaches from high school to previous strength coaches, across the board have had a huge impact on my life. My closest friends and colleagues, and then obviously my 2 kids are my biggest fans. None of this is possible without the student athletes. I've taken so much pride in having the ability to recruit the players that came to play for the Mountaineers, and the amount of dinners and conversations, recruiting offers, time spent with families and grandparents and little brothers and sisters of the players that end up coming to play for us is something that I cherish, and none of this is possible without those student athletes essentially buying in to me, buying into this program and saying, I want to get on board with what those guys are doing. It's easier now than it was 9 seasons ago. There wasn't quite as many accolades in this program 9 seasons ago, but to be able to have that trust from those families and those players is incredibly important to me. The best thing about having this opportunity is that my 2 kids get to grow up around extremely hardworking and driven, passionate young people that are chasing goals. So I'm more proud about that than anything by far. When I get to look out on the field and see my kids running around with the college guys, I feel like I've done something positive in their lives. The support from WVU alumni, fans, donors, and students is unmatched. I cannot wait to move forward and lead this program into the future.
So Steve, Greg Hunter, Blue and Gold News. So start about a year ago. You apparently, from what we understand, are ready to take another job, head coaching job. You got pulled back right at the last second. So walk us through last year when this transition began?
Yeah, last summer, I was fortunate enough to have some opportunities, but a lot of people in this building have had opportunities. That's not unique to me. Essentially, Ren Baker, Coach Mazey, and myself got together to do what was in the best interest of the program. And in order to do that, a head coach in waiting situation, that means sacrifice, that means compromise on everybody's ends. And so that was the definition of this process. A lot of people compromising, sacrificing, deciding what was in the best interest of WVU baseball, truly, to be able to make it happen. That's probably the most proud thing that I am inside the program in the last 9 years, is how this year was handled by so many people, because you can't win at a high level if there's ego, if there's self-obsession. You can't do that. And so a lot of people kind of put the personal ambitions aside in order to build a team and be part of something greater than themselves. So a lot transpired over the last year, but it's something I'm really proud of.
So how has your role changed in the last year? I mean, you've been part of this program for a long time, but as you started to move closer to the job, how did it change?
This year was a little bit business as usual. I signed up to be the assistant coach and be supportive and loyal to Coach Mazey and his ideas and his wishes. I think the only difference is that you start to evaluate everything that you're doing. So the biggest luxury is that you have a year to evaluate every step of the way. So you can't help it as you're planning and you know that this is on the forefront in front of you. You start planning and saying, would I do that a little bit different? Man, we do so well in that area. We need to keep going with it. We need to build momentum off of that. I don't think I love that. That's an area we could get better in. And so kind of a year of analysis. But at the same time, as an assistant, you've got to give positive feedback and negative feedback to the head coach, going, hey, we're doing this great, we're screwing this up. That's been my role for 9 years, is basically being an honest voice to Coach Mazey. And so business as usual, but maybe with a little different perspective.
Coach Justin Jackson with the Dominion Post. You mentioned recruiting has kind of been a big part of your role in the past. What will recruiting be for you moving forward now? Will you stay involved in recruiting? Or?
Yeah, I think it's important not to lose the identity of what I viewed myself doing well. Don't want to step into a new role and lose that. And so literally 2 minutes ago before this conference started, I was on the phone about a transfer portal player and his transcripts. And so right now I've kind of moved into more of a portal role with those immediate needs for our roster and some holes that our roster has. Coach Garcia is our recruiting coordinator, so he brings up all of it and does an unbelievable job. His focus is a little bit more on the high school base, but I'm going to continue to recruit. I love that piece of it. I think it's important to know the kids' stories before they get here, because I got a chance of making a bigger impact in their lives if I know kind of where they came from. But I'm going to keep hammering that out as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, I was going to say that it sounds like you enjoy the recruiting. I mean, when you were talking about the dinners and getting it. A lot of coaches will say, you know, recruiting's a pain in the butt. So what is it about recruiting that grabbed hold of you and you took to it?
Yeah, I think it's the chase. It's very hard to find players that we think will be great fits in the program or will be impact players. There's not a lot of them. It's difficult to find. But once you do and you identify somebody that could maybe change our program for the better, I think my role and responsibility as a head coach is to bring in the most badass staff and players in the world into the door and then let them do their thing. And so I think it's probably just because I put so much value in it. I know that the people are the only thing that matters. And so if we're able to find those great people, I love the chase. I like convincing people that this is the best university on earth. So I think that's probably, I get to stay competitive. I get to go compete against South Carolina and Tennessee and Florida and Texas. I get to try to go win on those guys. And so that's probably the competitive piece that I still get.
Would you say there is a passion there
Yep.
with recruiting?
Absolutely.
Did you always have it, or did you learn to have it over the years?
Yeah, I think I've learned to love it over the years. Like I said, when I first got the job here, I'd never recruited.
Yeah.
I came and Coach Mazey gave me a shot, essentially. And so I was dropped in West Virginia, no ties, no regional ties, and so it was kind of like, good luck, big guy, right? It's like I don't know Pennsylvania from Ohio to Virginia. It was no different to me. So you just start making phone calls, building relationships, and I found it really fun to kind of grow that network of people that want to help you, and then a lot of those people end up being your friends. But recruiting is a social thing basically. There's so many ties now with coaches and advisors and select ball club, owners. And so that piece has been fun. It feels like you have this big group of people behind you trying to help what your goals are.
Mike Austin with WV Sports Now. You mentioned it being a different program now than when you first got here, maybe easier to recruit, obviously historic seasons, things like that. Did you have any conversations with Ren Baker since you were announced and transition was in place about the rope, and I guess for lack of a better description, you will get, just because it's hard to replace a Hall of Fame coach? The expectations now amongst the fans might be super regional every year, and obviously that's not a thing that always is going to occur. And with players leaving, how did those conversations, anything you can give us in terms of the conversation of latitude that you'll be offered, where you see the future of the program, how you can keep it moving, and the difficulty in replacing now the Mazie era when it was so successful?
Yeah, I'm not ignorant to expectations. And Ren Baker, before the season happened, made this decision, right? And so he had a chance to look like a dummy or look like a genius, depending on how this year went. He put a lot of eggs into this basket that we were going to be able to be successful, because if it was not a successful season, people would probably question why you would hire an assistant coach in that scenario. But there's a lot of things that are out of our control. You can't control the wins and losses, so I'm never going to get too caught up in that. It happened to work out in this circumstance, and I'm proud of that. But I woke up every day for 9 years trying to change those standards, right? So I'm part of that. The whole staff is part of that. So I'm so excited that the expectations are higher and the standards are higher. If they weren't, it means that I wasn't a very good recruiting coordinator and we didn't do a very good job. So to cower in the face of new expectations would be silly at this point. I helped create them, and so I got to just keep making sure that that bar is rising over the course of my tenure here. So I'm fired up to be part of it. I don't know what the realistic expectations are. That's certainly not my job. My job is to set the culture, the standard, make sure our guys are process-oriented, kicking ass every day, and then you got to let the chips fall when it comes to the wins and losses.
Any advice that that Randy also gave you, because you also are taking over this program that is different than when he took it over as well, and some of the work that you're talking about here, you and him and the staff kind of already did, so you have a little better situation. But again, with great power comes great responsibility for the Spider-Man line, that you're taking over a more established, successful program, but that also comes with more expectations.
Yeah, I think Coach Mazie has permeated who I am. I've seen Coach Mazie more than my wife and kids over the last 9 years. There's no doubt about that. I've spent basically every day with the guy. So it starts to blend a little bit, right? Like what you think and what he thinks and what I said and what he said. You start thinking he said something, but it was me. And those kind of conversations happen all the time where you're like, Coach Mays, I told you that. Now you're telling me that kind of thing. And so I think it's really blended together, and he's done such an incredible job to take this program from where it was, coming from the Big East into the Big 12. If we were sitting here today when that happened, I think we would all be absolutely shocked that this has happened inside of this program. So he's to credit for that with his leadership, and I've learned so many things from him. It's impossible to really count at this point.
Steve, I'm Mike. I work for 24/7. Could you explain what a badass staff and roster is in your mind?
I can. Yeah, I think it's people that are selfless and humble and put the team first and come to work every day with a mission to help young people. And so that's easy to say, really hard to do, because in sports there is a lot of ego and you do have to be extremely confident, but you're looking for selfless individuals that want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. So you have to have talent and you have to have skill, and as a staff you have to be knowledgeable and hardworking, and you have to sacrifice so much in this profession. It's not about the smartest person in the room. Usually it's about the person that's willing to sacrifice the most for the team. And as far as the players go, it's becoming harder and harder to find players that put the team first. There's a lot of selfish desires in the game and in college sports right now. So you have to find the player that has the blend of the talent, has the blend of the professionalism, the confidence, but also that team first mentality.
Steve, you mentioned culture, Bob Hertel. What is your idea of the baseball culture, what it's supposed to be, and how will it differ from what it is?
I think it's going to be a very similar culture where we're going to put emphasis on blue collar mentality, work, selflessness, togetherness, team, and the process. I keep kind of going back to that, but the process at which we work and how we work is going to be cherished and valued every single day. And so it's my job to basically lay out that roadmap for the players to say, this is where we want to go, and this is how we need to do that. And so the culture is going to absolutely have some similarities moving forward because I've been a big piece of this culture for a long time. But naturally, things will change. There'll be changes that have to occur.
What's the biggest thing you're going to take from having spent 9 years with Randy?
Put the team first, put the players first.
Coach, you spent a few years at Oklahoma State. Obviously, they care a lot about baseball. A couple of weeks ago, you were down in North Carolina, and you kind of saw how those facilities were laid out. Obviously, they care about baseball down there. You've been to places around the country where they care greatly about baseball. I'm thinking here in a couple of months, they're going to start building the new facility here.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys have, through the years, have grown closer to competing with teams on the field. Is West Virginia getting closer to competing with them off the field as well? And how much, like with this new facility, play a role in the future of the program?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's always work to be done. The one thing that I'm 100% confident in is that the administration is doing everything in their power to have the resources for us to compete on the national landscape. And that's a big reason of why I'm sitting here right now, is because I know that everybody in that building wants baseball to be a winner, and they have directed resources and funds and budgets above and beyond what could have ever been asked here, and they keep moving it forward. The facility that's being built, indoor pitching and hitting lab, is going to be a state-of-the-art facility that only about 10 programs in the nation have, to put into perspective. And so we're gonna move forward heavily. We haven't had covered outdoor cages, and we're the only team in the Big 12 that didn't have that, and we're the furthest north team in the Big 12. So to be able to go from that to one of the top 10 programs as far as an indoor hitting and pitching lab and a biomech lab will put us in at a different arena, of course.
Your roster for next year, I'm sure there are pieces that still have to come into place, but how much of it, what are you still working on?
We have some holes with starting pitching. As you know, we have a good opportunity to fill those through the transfer portal, but Derek Clark is going to be graduating, and hopefully he's going to sign a professional contract here shortly. Hayden Cooper is graduating. We anticipate Aiden Major signing a professional contract. So a big chunk of innings that were thrown last season are going to be gone. So we have to bring in some new players to fill some holes. But I think what we're really counting on is that we had an unbelievable group of sophomore pitchers that showed flashes of brilliance for us and probably didn't pitch as much as they could have due to some of these older guys that ate a ton of innings. And so we need those players to step up. We believe in development. We believe in getting our guys better. So it's their turn to be able to take our program somewhere special.
Steve, Kevin Redfern, Golden Blue Nation. Just wondering, I know it's early, but in-game responsibilities for next year, do you plan on staying at third base, pitch calling, and where does Coach Oni and Coach Garcia fit in there? Yeah, great question. I'm going to stay at third base. There's going to be a lot of new things on the field. Coach Mazey is probably the most active on-field coach in the country. He called pitches, he ran the offense, he changed pitchers, made pitching decisions, so very active when it came to on-field. So I'm going to stay at third base just to keep some normalcy with what we have done because there's going to be a lot of new things
Coach Oney's going to call pitches. He's our pitching coach, so feel passionately about that. The guy that's in the bullpen every day, watching the pitchers, spending time with the pitchers, recruiting pitchers. I want him to have a really good pulse on that and to call pitches. I'll run the offense in the third base box, so I've got to figure out how that is going to work. Right now, we use the electronic system, the PitchCom system for offense, and I don't know if you could have a remote in your hand in the third base box and pull that off. So I gotta figure out if you can play video games in the third base box. And then Coach Garcia, right now, we anticipate him staying at first base and gonna introduce a new bullpen coach. So have a few things that we need to do in order to get the staff in line, but that's the general feel right now.
You mentioned pitching, your outfield, I guess, looks like it's pretty much intact.
Yeah.
Kyle West, could be draft, I'm not sure, what are your thoughts?
That's right.
Yeah, and then Salve at catcher, White could move to third. I mean, as you tell, like some of the other positioning guys that you're kind of looking at for the future.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. So I fall asleep every night going in circles about what's going to happen. The biggest, the most interesting thing about roster management is that you have draft eligible players that you don't know will be drafted or not. So Logan Save is draft eligible, Grant Hussey's draft eligible, Kyle West, Brody Kresser. We have several other draft eligible players, and then some of the transfer portal players that we've committed are also draft eligible.
Right.
So they're coming to West Virginia unless they feel like the professional ranks is a better option for them. And so it's actually impossible to get down on paper what your roster will look like. The transfer portal closes before the MLB draft happens. So basically everyone makes a decision if they want to be open for a new opportunity, and then the draft happens and reshuffles everything again. So you have to find this balance of being aggressive but not overly aggressive, because if players come back, you have too large of a roster, and you want to make sure you don't have too many guys in that locker room, and because that hurts development and team culture. And so we're playing that game every day. You kind of go back and forth in a circle a lot, but you're trying to gain as much information. But the players are the ones who have been wonderful with me. Essentially, I want whatever our players want, whatever's in their best interest. If it's signing a professional contract, if it's moving on as a free agent, I want to just celebrate that with them. Or if it's coming back to West Virginia, even better. But I just need to know the information. I need to know what is the real likelihood of their interest in entering professional baseball, and then I can find out what's the realistic possibility that a pro team actually wants them to enter professional baseball, right?
To be clear, Salve is obviously just sophomore, but
Draft eligible.
The age.
That's right.
Okay, that's what. Okay.
Yep, that's right.
In terms of transitioning from an assistant to a head coach role, and this is kind of a question that could be asked anyone who ever makes that transition, do you feel you have to change it all personality wise, or how would that work? Just for the fact that a lot of time assistants are maybe the best friend of a star player, kind of take them under the wing, say, the coach was a jerk today, but we'll get over this. But you're now the head coach, so it's a different dynamic in terms of relationships that you have built.
Yeah, different dynamic as a head coach. I am a firm believer that all you can ever strive to be is authentic. So try to be yourself every day. Be as authentic as you possibly can. I think a really good example of that is when we saw J.J. Weatherholt become a gorilla in the Tucson Regional. And we joked about it in inter-squads because he was always screaming, chirping, doing kind of silly stuff on the field. And it was like, hey, keep rolling with that. Like, if you're a weirdo during inter-squads, be a weirdo during the game. Like, go be a gorilla, go pound your chest, be authentic, just have fun, be yourself. And so I always try to remind myself, I don't need to really be anybody other than myself. And I think we all enjoy being around people and teammates and staff members, regardless of what they're like, as long as it's real. And so I'm going to continue to just be myself and be around the team and do my best.
Question on JJ, and this kind of goes to recruiting here a little bit too. How does a kid who was ranked as the 32nd best player in Pennsylvania coming out of high school become a top 10 pick in the draft 3 years later?
It's incredible, isn't it? I think it probably shows that baseball recruiting services and rankings are not very accurate, first of all, and then it shows somebody that was so passionate about becoming one of the best players in the nation that he worked himself into that position. So the combination of both those things, he was under-recruited, he played on small regional teams, didn't play on a lot of these national circuits where you get more of that attention. So his whole focus was playing baseball, getting better. I remember he played for a men's league. He played in a summer collegiate woodback league before he got to school here, and he played for the Beaver Valley Red, which is not a national team. He was a little second baseman for the Beaver Valley Red, and now we're talking about him potentially being the first overall pick as a shortstop. And so guys can make big jumps at different ages, and the developmental curve for kids is very different.
You mentioned about it being important in recruiting to know the kids. You like to be involved in that. It's important for us to know about you. Tell us a little bit. I mean, did you say you played at 4 different universities?
I did.
How did you do that before the transfer portal?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I was a I was a revolutionary. I was unbelievable. Goodness, yeah. I met a lot of different coaches, played at a lot of different levels, so the rules were different. You could change levels and continue to play. So I played at a junior college in Texas, and I transferred after summer baseball to a junior college in Florida. When I was playing there, I had a good year, got the opportunity to go to Oklahoma State. So I played there. I was a medical redshirt at Oklahoma State and didn't look like it was in my cards to become the starter the following year. And then I transferred to Embry-Riddle University in Florida, and I finished out 2 years there. And I was old to start college, so I was playing college baseball when I was 24. That was before COVID and red shirts and everything else.
When the realization hit you that every kid that's playing college baseball wants to be a big leaguer, or at least get drafted or something like that, when the realization hit you that you weren't going to be a professional baseball player, how did you handle the transition?
I think I handled it fairly well. My senior year, I got an opportunity to play indie ball after that year, but I was chasing the dream the whole time. But in my 5th season of college, I knew that I didn't want to work in an office, and I wanted to be around young people, and I wanted to stay around the game. And so got an opportunity to coach in a summer collegiate league where I drove 90 minutes a day to be an assistant coach. I got paid $400 that summer, so lost a ton of money on gas, but just got to be around the game. Coach Frank Anderson at Oklahoma State brought me back as a graduate coach as soon as my career was over, and I started cleaning dugouts and painting walls, and I was in charge of the work-study program and some of the academics for Oklahoma State right out of college, and so that was my beginning.
The game of baseball and the life of baseball seemed to mean quite a bit to you.
It meant everything to me. I knew I just had to stay in the game. I was so lucky that I got the opportunity at the Division I level. I had no plans of getting a master's degree, and Coach Anderson at Oklahoma State said, you can come here, but the only position we have is a graduate student assistant coach. So the caveat is that you have to get a master's degree. So I said, all right, I'm in. I was a big fan of education, obviously, but I got a master's in educational leadership and higher education, so got to learn a little bit more about universities and colleges and be around people a lot smarter than me for a couple years, and worked with Coach Frank Anderson in Oklahoma State.
You said you were an older college student to begin with. How did that?
I was.
work out? Yeah.
I think just age with high school, and then I ended up, in that day and age, it was more rare than it is today to be in college for 5 years. I had that red shirt at Oklahoma State after being injured, and so ended up being in school for 5 years.
Also, later you were older.
Yes.
Okay.
You
Steve, this isn't new, but the way the draft is shortened now, and with NIL being a resource too, it does seem like schools have a little bit more leverage to keep players around if they're underclassmen than before. But now that's your domain now, and you've been working with it before, but these next few weeks, like you said, could be chaotic. But how does that change the game? How has that changed the game?
Absolutely, it's changed the game, and I think if you have been a fan of college baseball, you watch some of these supers and you watch the World Series, and it is the highest level baseball that you can possibly watch. It is fast, it's explosive. There's nothing that's close to this unless you're watching MLB playoffs. The game, even at the major league level during the regular season, is slower than what we're watching in the World Series right now. It's the best the sport has ever been, and part of that has to do with that leverage that you just alluded to. NIL is an opportunity for kids to go to school and to put away some money and to essentially bet on themselves. So if they have multiple years of leverage, meaning that they could come back to school, they could stay, they can hone their craft, they can get better, and then choose to enter professional baseball. So I think some people would look at it like having 2 signing bonuses, essentially. You could stay in school, and then you could also increase your signing bonus from the pro teams if you play well and you perform well.
That said, have you mentioned that to JJ?
Not JJ. He doesn't have that year on the back end, so JJ's got to go. JJ's got to go.
You mentioned about JJ's transition and in addition to his work ethic that maybe he was overlooked by recruiting services and things like that. You also talked about it being a lot harder to necessarily cover recruiting for college baseball than say football and basketball. Do you have any suggestion how to avoid maybe this situation again where someone gets ranked 32nd in their state and then becomes a top 10 MLB pick? Is there anything you can, what can be done better for people that are covering college baseball recruiting?
We need to never avoid that situation again. We need to keep having that situation as much as possible. I think it's just difficult. So a lot of times these recruiting services are the people that are working there are young coaches, people that are just getting into baseball. And it's not like football or basketball where there's only metrics, how fast you are, how strong you are, how many times you can bench press, what's your 40-yard dash. There's so many different things, and we're not quite there yet as a sport to be able to identify the skill, just the skill of the bat to ball and the command of the pitches. And so so much skill involved in our sport, and that's why we all love it. But I don't think there is a solution to that other than really diving in on every player, background, passion, work ethic, past performance, some of the metrics, the power, speed, the mobility, all these things. The MLB Combine's going on right now. We have some of our players there. But
That's kind of newer, though. That's maybe something.
That's newer, right? And that's something that they're actually kind of changing the sport. I talked to one of our recruits last night. That's an incoming high school player, highly touted player, and he said that he was in the MRI tube. They did mobility. He saw a cardiologist. He saw somebody that measured his flexibility in his hips, like all day, basically trying to pinpoint what makes great players, how do you stay healthy. So I think there's a lot of research being done right now with that combine.
Steve, follow up with Bob's bio question a little bit. You're from where, and were you always just a baseball player? Multi-sports, anything else?
Yep, I was born in Dallas-Fort Worth area, grew up my whole life in Austin, Texas. I played middle school football, which was a big deal in Texas. They get up for that. I don't think they have middle school football here. Played ice hockey and roller hockey growing up, and then by the time high school rolled around, just baseball.
Steve, Joe Picano, West Virginia Metro News. I'm sure if you have a question or need advice, Coach Mazey's always a text or a phone call away, but does Coach Mazey have a formal or informal role with the program going forward, and how much do you still want him to be around the guys?
Yeah, he's an unbelievable resource, so he's going to be an advisor to the program. He's retired, and he's going to enjoy his retirement. He's worked really hard and deserved that. And so there's going to be plenty of days where Coach Mazey's hunting and fishing. He loves that. That's a passion of his. And most importantly, spending time with his kids. He's worked his whole life, and he's missed a lot of ball games. He's missed a lot of things with his 2 kids, Weston and Sierra, and he's going to spend more time with Amanda. And so he's always, like you said, a phone call away. Want him to be around here. I guarantee you he's at every single ball game, and he's not going to be able to help himself. He's going to let me know what he thinks about what's going on in the field, but I really will cherish that and look forward to having those conversations.
Steve, John Lowe, Golden Blue Nation. I think it's fair to say there aren't too many stories like West Virginia's baseball program over the last decade. As someone who has had a major chunk in that program building, do you ever kind of take the 30,000-foot view of what's been done here and compare it to other assistant coaches and people in your line of work and say, like, man, what I have is truly special?
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Haven't had a lot of time to do a lot of looking at the big picture. I do recognize that it's special, and I am beyond grateful. You get me emotional talking about like where the program's gone a little bit. It's taken a lot of sacrifice and belief from so many people to be able to do what we've been able to do. Certainly don't compare it to other assistants. There's so many people out there that are working extremely hard every day to try to better their programs, and there are a lot of circumstances outside a coach's control, and so I can't take credit for everything that's certainly happened here. But it's a calling. We're lucky to be around these young people. We're lucky to get to do what we do, and so that's the most important thing, to never forget that. But when you see a program or a big group of people kind of pulling the rope in the same direction and things change, it's incredibly rewarding.
When anyone gets a big-time job, get a lot of texts and phone calls, not just from people here, but all over. Was there anybody that stood out that was surprising that maybe you don't see every day that threw you a text like congrats in the baseball world or sports world? Or?
Sure. Like you said, whirlwind. I got two of them. So when it was announced a year ago, and then yesterday when they did a little bit of media stuff with me, and so it's funny. Like a lot of people maybe aren't on social media, or a lot of people had no idea that it happened a year ago, and so people were like, "Oh my gosh, congratulations!" And it's been in the works for a while now. But I had a former player today that was not easy when he was here. He was hard-headed, he was tough to coach, but we stayed really firm on him. We fought with him. We had a lot of hard conversations. To say that we enjoyed each other on a daily basis would not be accurate. And hadn't talked to him a ton after he had moved on from the program. And he didn't have an easy background when it came to playing and how he got to West Virginia. But he sent me a text this morning and said, "Congratulations. I know that I was stubborn and not coachable, and you stuck with me and did everything that you could to help me. I've grown up as a man. I just wanted to tell you I'm so happy for you in the program." First time that I've spoke to him since he left the program. And so that one for me this morning was pretty cool. I was like, God, that's why you do it. You don't get those very often, right? It might be like another decade before you get one of those suckers. But that was really cool.
Steve, just managerially, some small stuff, just I guess particular to you on the field, off the field, but I don't know, how much do you value like the numbers with matchups, I guess analytics, sabermetrics, things like that, shifts, all that, and then off the field too, like sports science is really big in baseball now, rest recovery, and you got all those resources there too. You guys have featured that, but I imagine you'll continue. But are there Steve Sabins things that you'll add or accentuate on or off the field?
Yeah, so important. Any information that we can have or have a better understanding to, we're going to in the program. Doesn't mean you can become it's possible to become a slave to the numbers, so you still have to have gut, you still have to have feel. There's such a huge human element to what we're doing, but you have to be educated. To pretend that that's not important is not the right road to go down. There are things we're going to continue to learn. We're continuing to figure out kind of the next piece for our program is motion capture and the mechanical and biomech work that this lab will help us with. So there's a product called Kinetrax, which is an 8-camera system, and essentially it can show you exactly how your body is moving while you're pitching or hitting. And there's also something called force plate technology that will go in this new indoor. It's basically how much force you're putting into the ground and what parts of your foot are putting the force into the ground. And so there's a lot of things that are incredible technology right now that we're getting caught up on. We're working as fast as we can, and they're also expensive pieces of technology. And so we have to find ways to support that inside of our program budgetarily. And so that's our goal right now, is to do everything in our power to maximize that technology.
It's sort of along those lines. When Maisie first took over the program and kind of instituted his system, he did it with a lot of athletes and speed, and then the whole small ball kind of thing became Maisie ball in a way. And then he adjusted over time. The teams the last couple of years were built more on power than the whole Maisie. So, I mean, he kind of rolled with the punches. And do you see yourself as you know, hey, I want to be a power team, or I want to be, you know, I want to lead the league in stolen bases every year, or, you know, your thoughts and your ideas on how you want to take the program along those lines.
Yeah, I think 9 years ago, a big focus was to get the best at something in this program. We didn't have that luxury of being able to have the guy that was fast and hit for power and had a good arm and was a plus defender. We couldn't recruit 5 tools. We weren't going to win on those players yet. And so one of the most available tools out there was speed. It was undervalued, and it was something that we could find and recruit to our program that was better than anybody in the conference. So it was kind of a thought that, all right, if we're not going to get the most elite hitter or the most elite pitcher, we know we could find speed. So we started there, and that's kind of how the whole Maisie Ball era began. We were by far the fastest team in the country, and it had some limitations. Some of those guys weren't necessarily the best hitters. There was low power numbers. I think as the season progressed, it became harder to steal bases because we were playing Big 12 competition. The catchers were better. The pitchers were more educated on their times to the plate. And so as we've won and gotten a little bit better, we've been able to incorporate some of these other tools in recruiting because we're getting some yeses from the guy that can hit and hit for power, or the guy that has speed and a plus defender. And so I don't want to pigeonhole our identity as a team. For me, the best athletes with the best work ethics that want to develop, and then once we get the boys on campus, trying to be authentic to what that identity is. But I think it's like saying if you were the manager of the New York Yankees, you have to be a certain way. I don't want to be that way. I want to be flexible and kind of use the tools that you have out there on the field.
You say you're getting more yeses now. You probably saw that kind of grow over your tenure here, and what was that process like? I mean, I'm sure there was probably a time in the beginning, you know, there's no way we're, you know, just don't even bother talking to this kid because he's going to say no. And eventually that changed, I would imagine, over the process of time.
Yeah, and I am proud of, we have never had that attitude. We were offering the best player in the nation at West Virginia 9 years ago. We just didn't get any yeses. And so, but our philosophy is that you're making a mistake if you don't jump on board with us. Like, this is where you want to be if you believe in people and development and culture. I know we don't have the trophies yet to show you, but one of those players was Alec Manoa. He was really the first highly touted recruit that had offers all across the country in SEC schools, and he chose West Virginia. And so that kind of kick-started. He was one of the most elite talents that we had that ended up being the first rounder and 11th overall pick in the 2019 draft. And so we are getting more yeses, but as we recruit higher end players consistently, now we're up against other successful schools. And so 9 years ago, there was a much larger net that was cast, and you were also allowed to offer anybody. Now you can't offer until you're a junior in high school. And so Logan Save committed to us as an 8th grader. We had 8th grade offers out across the country, and so we were aggressive, offering young people, trying to get ahead of the curve. Right. So we wouldn't have landed Logan Save if we would have waited until he was a junior, where our program was at that time. So now the rules have changed. You have to offer later. There's more reliance on the transfer portal, but the best thing about this place is if we get somebody on campus, we get a lot of yeses. They come to Morgantown, they feel the community, they see the facilities, they absolutely fall in love with the place. It is more difficult to get them on campus. It's usually flying into Pittsburgh, it's rental cars, it's coming down. A lot of people that we recruit have never been in the state. They have never been to West Virginia, so they don't know how beautiful this state is.
Jameson was probably like one of the last ones from that old recruiting era where you could get them younger.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Details on the new facility, when does it actually start construction? Do we know? Will it be ready?
I learned that we're mobilizing July 5th. Don't know what mobilizing means. but we're mobilizing. Yep, so I think everybody's coming together and hopefully breaking ground in July, and the anticipated finish date is around December or January of 2025.
Okay, so I mean, it will be something almost right away that you can show.
Absolutely, yeah, we're showcasing pictures and renderings, and we're getting very close. Yep, this will be a reality in our program next season.